How much Bitcoin do you actually need to retire? You've heard all kinds of answers. Just get to one coin and you're set. Or you can retire on 0.01 Bitcoin. Those numbers are really fun to share, but they don't tell you anything about whether your Bitcoin can actually fund your life. There's a real framework for this. If your life costs $100,000 a year, retiring today would require about 19.5 Bitcoin at current prices. But if you retire 10 years from now, the same framework gets you closer to just 2. That's a massive difference. And it comes down to 4 inputs: what your life costs, the withdrawal rate you're using, the price of Bitcoin, and how much time your Bitcoin has to compound in your favor before you need it. By the end of this video, you're going to be able to run those 4 inputs for yourself and come up with your own Bitcoin retirement number. I'm Trey Sellers. I retired in 5 years using Bitcoin as a core part of my plan, and this channel is where I teach you how to do the same. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. So before we talk about the Bitcoin price or how many coins you need, we have to define the job your portfolio is supposed to do. Retirement is really a coverage problem. Can the assets that you own cover your expenses without requiring a paycheck? That is the key question. That means that the first number that I need to hear when I'm talking to people about how much Bitcoin they need to retire is not their current Bitcoin balance, it's how much they spend each year. 2 Bitcoin means something very different to somebody who spends $50,000 a year than for somebody who spends $200,000 a year. The same stack can be a massive head start for one household and nowhere close for another. So start with your annual expenses. Pull the last 12 months of your bank account and your credit card statements and add up what actually left, what you actually paid for: housing, cars, insurance, groceries, eating out, travel, kids' activities, everything else that it takes to run your life. Then make reasonable adjustments for your retirement years. Your mortgage may be gone, or you've moved to a different house. Your health insurance costs may actually be greater, and you may travel more, join a country club, or finally get that place that you've always wanted near the water. The numbers should fund the life that you actually want, not just the cheapest version of it or the life that you're living right now. Most mornings, I run my own numbers over coffee. It takes about 10 minutes. I open a spreadsheet that I built years ago, and I look at where cash is flowing, what my savings portfolio is worth, what the last 12 months actually cost me, and what I expect to spend next month. I don't track every credit card charge or worry about putting every dollar into a perfect category. I follow the cash because I want to know the burden that my portfolio eventually has to carry. For the rest of this video, I'm going to use $100,000 of annual expenses as the assumption for an example. That means the portfolio in our example needs to produce $100,000 every year without a paycheck filling the gap. Once we have that figured out, the next question is straightforward. How large does the portfolio need to be to support these withdrawals? This is where the 4% rule comes in. The 4% rule is a traditional FIRE starting point based on how stock and bond portfolios performed across long historical retirement periods. The basic idea is that you withdraw 4% of the portfolio in the first year, then you adjust that dollar amount for inflation over time. Historically, that gave a retiree a strong chance of making money last for 30-year retirement. For our purposes, the important part is what the 4% does to the math. If you need $100,000 from the portfolio, and that represents 4% of the starting balance, you divide $100,000 by 4%. That gives you a traditional retirement target of $2.5 million. You'll also hear people describe this as the 25 times rule. It's the same calculation written in a different direction. Dividing by 4% is the same as multiplying by 25. The multiplier translates 1 year of spending into the amount of invested capital that could support the spending over a long retirement. So now we have a clean traditional baseline. $100,000 life points to a $2.5 million stock and bond portfolio. But this video isn't asking how much stock and bond wealth you need. It's asking how much Bitcoin you need. Bitcoin changes the asset side of this equation. So the 4% rule was built around traditional portfolios, but Bitcoin has a different expected return profile. It has different drawdowns and different custody considerations, and it plays a different role inside a portfolio. I don't think it makes much sense to take a rule that was built around stocks and bonds and apply it to Bitcoin without changing anything. For long-term planning, I use a 25% annual growth assumption for Bitcoin. Stocks have historically returned around 10%. Now, I don't expect Bitcoin to grow 25% every single year. The path is definitely going to be ugly and volatile. But over the long run, 25% is the assumption that I'm willing to use as Bitcoin matures and its growth slows down. Because I expect Bitcoin to grow much faster than stocks, I use a higher withdrawal lens for the Bitcoin portion of a portfolio. The simple ratio, as it relates to the 4% rule, points to something around 10% instead. And to be even more conservative, I bring that down down to 8%. Now, the important phrase here is the Bitcoin portion of your portfolio. If you own a mixed portfolio with stocks, cash, bonds, and Bitcoin, you don't apply 8% to the whole thing. You calculate the traditional assets using a traditional withdrawal rate and the Bitcoin sleeve of that portfolio using the Bitcoin withdrawal rate. For this video, though, I want to isolate the Bitcoin target. We're asking how large the Bitcoin position would need to be if it were responsible for the full $100,000 of annual spending. At an 8% withdrawal rate, here's the calculation. That gives us a Bitcoin portfolio target of 1.25 million. Or using the multiplier shortcut, 8% flips to 12.5. So now the logic is complete. Your annual expenses tell you how much the portfolio needs to pay you. The withdrawal lens tells you how much capital you need to support those payments. Under the traditional 4% rule, the target was $2.5 million. But under the 8% Bitcoin lens, that target is now $1.25 million. The next step is simply translating that target into Bitcoin terms. For this example, Bitcoin is trading around $64,000 today. We need $1.25 million of Bitcoin value, so divide that target by the current price. That's where the original 19.5 Bitcoin that I showed you at the beginning of the video comes from. This isn't a universal retirement number. It's the immediate retirement target of someone spending $100,000 a year using an 8% Bitcoin withdrawal lens at a $64,000 Bitcoin price. And yes, 19.5 Bitcoin is a huge number, but it answers a very specific question. How much Bitcoin would you need if you wanted your stack to carry that entire $100,000 lifestyle right now? Most people watching this aren't ready to retire today. They have 5 years, 10 years, maybe 15 years before the Bitcoin needs to fund their life. That time changes the answer more than anything else in the model. At 25% annual growth, Bitcoin roughly triples every 5 years. If a $64,000 Bitcoin triples over the next 5 years, it reaches roughly $195,000. The retirement portfolio still has the same $1.25 million job in this simple example, but each coin now does more of that job. 5 years of runway takes the target from 19.5 down to about 6.4 Bitcoin. Give it another 5 years, and the modeled Bitcoin price is close to $600,000. Now the target is just over 2 Bitcoin. At 15 years, the modeled price is around $1.8 million, and the target falls below 1 Bitcoin. We're talking about the same person, the same $100,000 lifestyle, and the same $1.25 million portfolio target. The only thing that changed is how much time Bitcoin had to compound. That gives us the rule of 3. Take the Bitcoin target you would need to retire today and divide it by 3 for every 5 years that you plan on working. Now, this is a quick planning rule. It's not a promise that Bitcoin will move in a perfectly smooth line. And that brings us to the part a simple CAGR calculation can hide. What happens if the long-term return is good, but the bad years show up right after you stop working? Bitcoin can compound at 25% over a long period and still drop 50%, 70%, or 80% at exactly the wrong time. If you're still working, a drawdown is painful, but you can keep earning and stacking. However, if you've retired and you need to sell Bitcoin every month to pay your bills, the same drawdown becomes much more dangerous. You are selling more sats at lower prices. Those sats are gone when the recovery eventually comes. This is called sequence risk. The long-term returns may be fine, but they arrive in the wrong order for the person withdrawing that money. You don't solve that problem by pretending Bitcoin won't crash again. You solve it by building flexibility into your plan before the crash even happens. My hierarchy for this starts with spending. Can you cut travel, delay a major purchase, or temporarily reduce discretionary expenses? 1 or 2 lean years can take a lot of pressure off this portfolio. Next, can you keep some income coming in? Consulting, part-time work, or business income doesn't have to replace your whole salary. It only has to reduce the amount you are forced to sell during this drawdown. Then make sure you look at your other liquid assets. If you own cash, taxable stocks, or other investments alongside your Bitcoin, those assets can buy Bitcoin time to continue compounding. I generally want to sell weaker, slower growing assets first and give Bitcoin the longest runway possible. Now, that does not mean that you never sell your Bitcoin. It means withdrawal order is part of the plan. I also like the idea of marking Bitcoin at a more conservative value, such as the 200-week moving average, instead of assuming the spot price is fully available to fund your retirement. If your plan still works at this lower valuation, you have more room underneath you. So at this point, we have a Bitcoin target and a way to protect it through volatility. But there's another way to hit your number and still be unable to retire. The money can exist, list, but still be in the wrong place. Imagine you're 42. You maxed out your 401k every year, you grabbed every dollar of that employer match, and you watch the balance grow into high six figures. You hit your retirement number, but 80% of your net worth is inside accounts with rules built around traditional retirement age. There are legitimate ways to access that money early, including the Rule of 55, 72T distributions, and Roth conversion ladders. But every one of those approaches comes with specific rules and trade-offs. Congratulations, you've built golden handcuffs. Your net worth says you are financially independent, but your accessible wealth says you still need a bridge. That bridge is the cash, taxable investments, accessible Bitcoin, Roth contributions, or income that covers the years between the day you leave work and the day your retirement accounts become easier to use. So here's what I recommend. Grab your full employer match if it's available, then make sure you're building enough wealth outside of traditional retirement accounts. Free money is free money, so you should definitely take it, but don't optimize so aggressively for the tax benefit that you lock up the money that you need to retire early. Traditional retirement accounts are permissioned wealth. The government sets the contribution limits, the investment rules, the access rules, and tax treatment. By contrast, Bitcoin in self-custody is sovereign wealth. There is no age gate and no plan administrator between you and the asset. I contribute enough to grab that employer match and then direct the rest toward Bitcoin I hold myself. My retirement accounts can cover the later years. The rest stays accessible for the years when I may actually need it. So after you calculate your Bitcoin target, look at where the rest of your wealth sits. If your plan says you have enough, but you can't reach the assets when the bill actually arrives, you don't have a complete retirement plan yet. So now we have the number, the timeline, and the two biggest operating problems: surviving a drawdown and keeping enough wealth accessible. The last question is how to build the stack. I call my approach the stacking sprint. It's a focused period of aggressive saving and stacking designed to build a compounding base early, while your income can still make a meaningful difference. In the early days, every dollar saved moves the needle. Going from 0.1 Bitcoin to 0.11 Bitcoin is a 10% increase. That's a realistic and easy move for someone who is saving aggressively. Later, going from 5 Bitcoin to 5.5 Bitcoin is also a 10% increase, but it requires another half a Bitcoin. And if the price has climbed along the way, brute force savings becomes much more expensive. The bigger your stack gets, the harder it is for it to grow through contributions alone. But that's also when compounding starts doing much more of the work. This is the point of the sprint. You front load the effort during the phase when your savings rate is most powerful. For me, roughly 4 years is a sweet spot. It's long enough to change your position and short enough that you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. You can see where it is that you're going. The sprint isn't supposed to become a permanent lifestyle. Once the foundation is built and the modeled growth on the portfolio begins to outweigh what you can add from your income, you can start to coast. That can mean saving less aggressively, spending more freely, traveling more, changing the kind of work you do, or saying yes to the things that you postponed during the sprint. The FIRE methodology teaches people how to save, but it often does a terrible job of teaching them how to spend. The stacking sprint gives the hard part a boundary. Sprint when your effort matters most. Then let the balance sheet carry more of the load. One way I like to think about financial independence is that you're buying your life back from the far end. The money you save today funds the years when you're least likely to be willing to work. If you plan to live to 95, the first dollars fund your 95th year, then your 94th, then your 93rd. Every contribution pulls the finish line a little bit closer to the present. The Bitcoin retirement number gives you a way to measure how much distance is left. Start with what your life costs, apply the withdrawal lens, and translate that dollar target into Bitcoin. Then adjust for how many years Bitcoin has to compound in your plan. After that, make sure the plan can survive a drawdown and that the assets are actually accessible to you when you need them. I built the FIRE BTC Compass tool to run those numbers for you. It's free at calc.firebtc.io and it's linked below this video. Put in what your life costs, choose your timeline, and find out what your Bitcoin retirement number actually looks like. Go run yours.